friends, how are ya? How we going? Welcome along to Cubecast episode 61. I'm jamming in a couple this week. This is kind of, it's not an emergency Cubecast, but it's definitely an extra one. Because I have got like loads to catch up on. Loads and loads to catch up on. So I had the opportunity to do another one tonight. So I thought I would, because I thought there was some important stuff to take a look at, based on what we looked at on Monday. So that's what we're here for, everyone. That's what we're doing. What's up, James? What's up, Michael Zane? What's up, Josh? Lovely to have you here. Channel member Josh, what an absolute legend. What an absolute Timmy. An absolute Timmy, stand-up community member. Member of this community. I appreciate it, Josh. I really appreciate it. Okay. Shall we start with, while we're waiting for everyone to join, I thought I might just give you a little congestion update. What's up, Chris? Welcome along. So I had COVID last week. My wife's got COVID this week. She's very unhappy about it. She suspects that I might have given it to her. I don't know where she's getting that idea. I don't think she knows, as a doctor, how infectious diseases work. So I'm not convinced that she can be sure that I give it to her. We only live in the same house. But anyway, she's upset and very ill. I was ill last week, like sick as a dog, actually. Like, I'd forgotten how brutal COVID was. And then the COVID part ran its course, and I was just like, kind of tired and cooked. And then I just ended up with this, with like mega inflamed, what are they called? Sinuses. So I like had this, it was like I was wearing a mask of pain. Like from here up to here was just like brutal. Absolute agony. So Laura said, being that she's a doctor and she knows about these things, she was like, you need to do a sinus rinse. And I, being naive, said, Dr. Brain is a muscle mic. Well, I feel like I washed my brain, because she got me to do a sinus rinse, okay? Which is where you, it's like a douche or an enema for your face, okay? So you get this bottle of saline, like room temperature tepid saline, in this special bottle. You put the nozzle up your nose, okay? So up one nostril. I don't know if you guys have done this before. I've never heard of it in my life. And you essentially squeeze like 120 mils, so like a not insignificant volume of water, the saline water, up into your nose, into your sinuses, like up into the back of your face, right? And you do that until it comes drilling out your other nostril and out the back of your mouth, out the back of your throat. It's the most savage thing. So I'm like standing over the sink. Okay, I'm going to try and do a dramatic reenactment. Standing over the sink with this bottle up my nose, like drilling this thing up my nose, filling my head with fluids, just going, oh, and like these inhuman noises were coming out of me. Laura was really pleased in hindsight that she stayed and watched. She wanted to make sure I was doing it right and not like half-arsing it. And she said, I couldn't really see because I like my eyes were closed. It was so uncomfortable and so weird. But she said the stuff that came out of me was absolutely foul. And Nick knows my pain. Hello, Curious Nick. Welcome along. So I've never done it in my life before. I did it twice last night. And I was like, oh, I don't know, Laura. Like, it feels pretty funky. I don't know if this is actually... I don't know if this has done the job or not. But honestly, I woke up this morning and it felt like I'd had a face transplant. Like, I was just like, oh my God, I'm cured. I'm cured. I am still a bit sniffy and congested. Like, it hasn't actually cured. It's still going down, but I'm feeling a lot better. Simas has done that before. Those of you who, because I know some people with like chronic sinus stuff have to do it like regularly. So I take my hat off to you guys. I salute you all for doing that regularly. That was pretty exciting. That's something new and exciting I did this week. So, you know, I thought that would make a disgusting little story to start the day. Hey, Siru. What I was talking about was a sinus rinse that I did yesterday to fix my inflamed sinuses that I've had as a little leftover, little treat after a dose of COVID last week. That's what I'm talking about. So, welcome along, everyone. Of course, the stream, as always, brought to you by Speedcube Shop, Cubing Life Academy, and our good friends at G Fuel as well. I'm not actually drinking G Fuel tonight. It's far too late at night to be drinking a caffeinated beverage, for goodness sake. This looks like a stout. It looks like a beer because it is, but it's a zero alcohol one. I don't drink. If I'm ever on, because it's at night times now that I'm streaming, I might have a beer on the go, but it's always a zero because I haven't had a drink in 4.5 years, everyone. 4.5 years. Well done for me. Isn't that nice? That's another cool story. But anyway, that's just to explain, if you think I'm smashing beers on stream, that's not technically what's happening. You know what I mean? Just to be clear. So, the reason I wanted to come on tonight was I've been thinking, hey, I've had thoughts, and specifically thoughts about some stuff we talked about on Monday. You'll have seen the title and the thumbnail. I thought about the two main takeaways that I ended up with, certainly on Monday, which were about the WIC, right? The Integrity Committee. I mean, the WCA as a whole, but mostly it was about the WIC in terms of what we were talking about with whatever his name is, Bohack or whatever. Our dear friend, our dear incarcerated friend, Alex Bohack, I think it was, and people comparing that situation to Cuberoot and things that have gone on there, and we came away, or I certainly came away with two main questions really, which was like, what is the basis of our assumption that the jurisdiction of the WIC ends at competitions? I figured, you know what? I haven't actually seen that written down anywhere. So I'm going to go hunting for it. And I did a bit of hunting this morning. I was sipping some coffee this morning and just having a rake around on WCA. And I was looking at the digests that come out every now and then. From the WIC. The WIC digest comes out every quarter, right? And they'll say some of the cases they've been working on, and they'll also say what the results of those cases were. It's all very, it doesn't mention names that I could see, and it also doesn't it doesn't mention names. It's anonymous. It does mention the region. So I was looking at those, and I found this one case that was it was not about cheating or anything like that. It was about creepiness. It was a delegate actually who was a creep and received a ban. And I also found another one where there was a spectator who was being a prize plum as well and received a ban as a result of their prize plummery. Right. So I was reading those and I went, okay, interesting. Why did I think they were interesting? No, the first one was interesting because a lot of it was based on stuff that didn't actually happen at a competition. And I thought, well, hold on. Didn't we make the assumption that they can't do anything with evidence that happens outside a competition? That first piqued my interest. And the second one just kind of backed up, creeps do be getting banned. We are identifying creeps and kicking them out. That's interesting. What's going on here? So I didn't think it was, it appeared to me that their jurisdiction did go beyond competitions, and I thought that's very interesting. So I went and dug around, and I think it is untrue. I think they do have jurisdiction beyond just WCA competitions. So we're going to look at that. And two, in Luke's video in particular, and in some other forums, like on speedcubing, speed solving, and in Cubex's friends, people talk about, and in Luke's video, we've heard people mentioning like the fear of defamation lawsuits and things like that. And I found something in their documentation that alludes to that, and I had a little yap with your friend and mine, ChatGPT. So big disclaimer. I'm not a lawyer, and neither is ChatGPT, but I did ask it a couple of questions just to clarify something and to give me some examples of how that would work. So all that led me to, what that led me to was like, I think maybe I've underestimated the WIC actually. I think more than that, I think a lot of us have underestimated the WIC, the power they have, and the position they're in. But the good news is, I think there are glimmers of hope. There's like, there are solutions. There's potential light at the end of the tunnel. So I want to, I think a little bit kind of go to bat for the WIC. You know, and talk about actually how we can help the WIC and suggest some solutions to what Luke has proposed and what we talked about with like the defamation idea and the publishing of names and things like that. I think there's workarounds, and I don't think they're uncommon workarounds. I don't think we have to reinvent the wheel for any of this. And my source material tonight is going to be the WCA itself. We're going to be looking at the WIC motion, so where the WIC was set up, the rules it plays by, and the stuff that looks after. So that's the code of conduct and the suspensions and sanctions document as well. And then we'll talk to old mate ChatGPT. You know what I mean? Siru, there was this old China guy who wanted to destroy the WCA. They banned him. Well, that sounds like a pretty smart move on the behalf of the WIC, in my opinion, based on the very limited evidence that you've presented today. Anyway, here's how we're going to do this today, everyone. We are going to start at the beginning. That seems like a logical place to start. We're going to start at the beginning with this. Picture the scene. The day is March the 1st, 2025. Let's assume it's a beautiful sunny day. And the WCA board has just posted a motion on the WCA website. What a wonderful day. We love it when that happens. This is a submission of proposed motion number 10, 2025.3, one of my favorites. The subject is the WCA Integrity Committee. The intent is the rights and duties of the WCA Integrity Committee. So this is when the WDC, the disciplinary committee, and I forgot. The WCA, James will know, the WDC, the disciplinary committee, was merged with another committee, which may have been called Integrity. I've forgotten what that was. But anyway, they were merged, and the WIC was born, right? The Integrity Committee was born. And this motion is where the rules for the Integrity Committee exist. And I wanted to take a look at them. Because they shine a lot of light on the things that we've been talking about recently, and I think it's only fair to go through them. So the motion is as follows. Lots of reading tonight, just heads up. Oh, Ethics Committee, thank you, James and Chris, appreciate that. So yeah, the Ethics Committee and the Disciplinary Committee were disbanded or merged. Disbanded, and then this was formed, or they were merged into this. It's quite a large group, actually. Bear with me just a second. World Cube Association. If we go to information, no. We go to teams and committees, and then we go to the eyes no work. Integrity Committee, right there. This is a big team. I suppose it has to be. It has to be in a lot of different lots of different jurisdictions and all this kind of stuff. But it's a big team, a really big team, and they work very, very hard under challenging circumstances, all things considered. Some familiar names in the senior members, of course, Cade Beck and Carter Kukala. We've talked about them before. I recognize those names. Don't know if I remember any of the other ones from things we talked about before. And yeah, there we are. So here we go. We'll start from the top. The WCA Integrity Committee is an advisory committee of the WCA. Okay, sure. The WCA Integrity Committee has the following rights and duties, okay? 1, investigations. So, performing independent investigations regarding WCA community members. So the subjects of these investigations are incidents during WCA competitions, sure. Incidents related to WCA competitions, sure. Or incidents within the WCA community. Now, that's the one that immediately, on reading this document, that kind of pricked my ears up. Because incidents within the WCA community is deliciously, and I'm assuming, or I would be inclined to assume, intentionally vague. Incidents within the WCA community. So I would read that to include things that members of the WCA community does. I don't know if there's a definition anywhere within the WCA of what that means, but that to me suggests that the WIC does have a bit of jurisdiction to be aware of and investigate the actions of the WCA community wherever, really. So much to say, is this person being a creep on Discord to someone? That could be investigated, right? That's an incident within the WCA community, potentially. Incidents are alleged violations of the spirit, mission, motions, policies, codes. That's going to be important because the code of conduct is where we're going to start today, and or regulations of the WCA. So incidents. So this is actually quite clear. The subjects of the investigations are incidents during WCA competitions, incidents related to WCA competitions, or incidents within the WCA community. Incidents are alleged violations of the spirit, mission, motions, policies, codes, and or regulations of the WCA. James has just come in, and we're going to find out the answer to this in a minute. I was kind of under the impression that that meant WCA forum, WCA live stream, chat, etc. Those are mentioned specifically in the document that we're going to take a look at right now. We're going to duck out of this one right now, and we are going to look at the main document that the WIC is responsible for, which is the Code of Conduct. Now, we have a Code of Conduct and we have a Code of Ethics. Code of Conduct is for members, regular schmoes like me. Code of Ethics, different document, similar, is for volunteers. So, delegates, organizers, all that kind of stuff, staff. Right? There's a code of ethics that they have to comply to. Code of conduct is for competitors and spectators. Well, competitors mainly. The code of conduct must be considered, and we're going to go through this right now, okay? Because it's important that we understand this before we can talk about what the WIC is there to do and the punishments that they're allowed to hand out in the suspensions and sanctions document, all right? So Code of Conduct version 1.2, the Code of Conduct must be considered by all community members as a standard for actions and behavior. These actions should uphold the spirit and mission of the WCA while not breaking any regulations, motions, or policies. This code covers previously known issues as well as issues that the WCA foresees as requiring additional guidance. One could argue there is an issue missing, which is the protection of minors. Nowhere in any documents are minors mentioned in the WCA, which I do think is an oversight, but I think it's probably being worked on, or I hope it is. This document will be updated periodically to incorporate new topics as they are brought to the attention of the WCA, well, there we are, and reviewed regularly. Disciplinary procedures are handled by the WCA Integrity Committee. Hey, we were just talking about them, as outlined in item 3 of this document. The official communication channel for the WIC is via email. For any concerns about the conduct of a community member, contact the WIC. So this is an important procedural thing to note for anyone who doesn't know. Yes, talk to delegates. If you are seeing something going on at a competition or being carried out by a WCA member that you don't like, the WIC is essentially the people who are there to receive your complaints, okay? So if you want something to be reported to the WIC officially, if you actually want to make a complaint, it has to be an email, and it has to go to the integrity committee via that email address, which I think is important. That's a boring point. Sounds like I'm overselling it, but there is a process to complaints being submitted to the WCA. This is the process currently as it stands. An email must go to the WIC. Okay, so back to the rules that you and I have all agreed to abide by as members of the speedcubing community. I'm just gonna time out Cricket Boy for a second. 24 hours. See you tomorrow. So this is what we're talking about. In terms of what we have agreed to adhere to as members of the speedcubing community. Okay, so scope and application. 1.1. All community members are automatically bound by and required to comply with all of the provisions of the Code of Conduct. Sure. Community members shall be deemed to have agreed that it is their personal responsibility to familiarize themselves with all of the requirements of the Code of Conduct, including what conduct constitutes an offence under the Code of Conduct, to submit to the... This is a complicated one. To submit to the exclusive jurisdiction of any WCA delegate, WCA committee, or WCA board of directors convened under the disciplinary procedure to hear and determine charges brought pursuant to the Code of Conduct. So to summarize that, you, by adhering to the Code of Conduct, you accept that you are behaving yourself under the jurisdiction of delegates, WCA committees, board of directors, and if any disciplinary procedures are brought, you are required to act under that jurisdiction, to talk to those people, to respond to them. You know what I mean? Is my understanding anyway. And 113, not to bring any proceedings to any court or other forum that are inconsistent with the foregoing submission to the jurisdiction of the WCA delegates, WCA committees, or WCA board. So that's an interesting one, isn't it? Not to bring any proceedings to any court or other forum that are inconsistent with the foregoing submission to the jurisdiction of the WCA delegates, WCA committees, or WCA board. So that to me sounds like it's saying you talk to us if there is an issue. I might go and ask, you know what, I might just dive in early to ChatGPT and ask if it can summarize these two sections. Just dumb this down for us, ChatGPT. Okay. I'm reading the World Cube Association Code of Ethics. Can you please summarize in plain English? I know you can't see this on screen right now. I'll show you the answer. What these clauses mean. And then I'm always very polite to ChatGPT because I think when the robots take over, I'm hoping that they'll remember me and go, he was cool actually. Let's not turn him into batteries. Oh, here we go. They really had to think about that. Oh god, it's a big long answer. This is not... okay, no, okay, here we go. I'm gonna bring this over. So that's why I asked. I'm reading the World Cube Association Code of Ethics. Can you please summarize in plain English what these clauses mean? And it's the clauses I just read to you. 1.1.2 and 1.1.3. What it means in simple terms: submit to the exclusive jurisdiction. If there's a complaint or disciplinary issue, you agree that only the WCA's own officials will handle it. They investigate, they make decisions, they handle any appeals. In other words, I agree to let the WCA handle disputes internally. Not to bring any proceedings to any court. You agree not to take the same issue to an external court or legal system if it conflicts with the WCA's process. In other words, I won't sue or go to an outside authority over something the WCA is handling if that would undermine their process. That's quite an interesting clause. That's quite an interesting clause. If we're talking about defamation things. But I think it's... I think I understand. It's like, if there's a problem, we'll deal with it inside the WCA. But what if that problem is a crime, is my question. What if that problem is a crime? Is my question there. The big picture. Together, these clauses mean the WCA wants disputes handled inside the organisation first and foremost. Participants agree not to bypass that system by going straight to court. It's about keeping governance internal, consistent and controlled. Important nuance, this doesn't necessarily mean courts are always off limits in every country, as you were exploring earlier. Aw, it remembered me. In some jurisdictions, laws around due process or defamation and rights to legal recourse can override agreements like this. But as far as the WCA is concerned, you're agreeing, I'll use your system and I won't try to go outside it in a way that conflicts with it. We won't go any further with that one. I think that's generally speaking answered my question about that. So 1.2, while taking into account Article 1.1, the WCA and community members shall be responsible for promoting the code of conduct, awareness and education among community members, in particular WCA volunteers. So we agree that this all comes under the jurisdiction of the WCA, and we agree that we are responsible for promoting adherence to the code of conduct. So essentially, they've codified what I was saying yesterday, which is say something if you see something. That is codified in there. So now into conduct itself. Every community member must behave with respect towards the representatives of the WCA, other registered speedcubers, spectators, press and partners. This applies to behaviour during WCA competitions and also online, on official WCA platforms. Oh yeah, this is where you were what we were talking about, James. So conduct. Every community member must behave with respect towards the representatives of the WCA, other registered speedcubers, spectators, press and partners. This applies to behaviour during WCA competitions and also online on official WCA platforms. So that could be a contradiction there, James, from incidents within the WCA community that could be linked directly to that. So it may be that one overrides the other, potentially. Community members are expected to conduct themselves according to the following values. Compassion, treat others as you would like to be treated. That's quite a vague one. Integrity, be honest and compete fairly. Respect, show respect to all other humans. Possible violations include, but are not limited to, hate speech, threats, offensive behavior, or verbal abuse related to sex, gender, identity and expression, sexual orientation, race, ethnicity, disability, physical appearance, age, or religion. 222. Stalking or intimidation, physically or online. Spamming, raiding, hijacking, or inciting disruption of streams or social media. Posting or threatening to post other people's personal information. Sexual harassment, this includes unwelcome sexualized comments, jokes, and sexual advances. Any action or behavior that can result in damage for the reputation of the WCA. Well, that's another gloriously vague one. Advocating for or encouraging any of the above behavior. So that's what we have in terms of conduct, which isn't a lot. I mean, it's a one-page document, essentially, this. So it is a little bit woolly, it could be argued. The status of the WCA as a 100% volunteer-run non-profit must be upheld by all community members. This means that finances for WCA competitions must be handled according to the WCA Code of Ethics, section Finances. Sure. Leftover money must not be retained by organisers who are not regional organisations or WCA delegates who must abide by the Code of Ethics 2x3x1. Leftover money shall thus be reinvested and used for community activities. So this is getting into like more Code of Ethics and finances stuff. So it then goes on to reference the disciplinary stuff. Disciplinary procedure. Violations of the Code of Conduct will be analysed and evaluated by the WCA Integrity Committee. What's up, Prajna? Violations of the Code of Conduct can result in suspensions and other sanctions. So this part that's fine. There's nothing really extra they can put on there. So that's our that is it, everyone. That's our code of conduct. That's what all of us as members of the WCA agree to when we come on. There is the jurisdiction part's kind of wacky, but I think I get it. I do think I get it. Old mate ChatGPT said pretty conclusively that there are laws in other jurisdictions that can override this. I suppose my only other question for those clauses would be what about crimes? You know what I'm saying? Like they can't be saying. They're not saying we override the police, but I suppose they are. I think they're talking specifically because they're like taking disputes to, like if you were to take some grievance about cheating or something to a court. And I think ultimately cheating was like potentially top of the concerns of the people who drafted this, which is fair and reasonable and understanding, but the organization's grown a lot since then and got a lot younger in terms of competitors since then. So suffice to say, that's our code of conduct. So where do we get to in the motion of setting up the WIC? We're going to skip back now out of the code of conduct, which the WIC looks after, and we're going to continue reading the motion, the rights and duties of the WCA Integrity Committee. So essentially what they're for and what they're supposed to do. And to an extent, the rules that they abide by. Excuse me, everyone. I'm still a little bit bleh. And I apologize for that. So, we got down to here, didn't we? 11111111111. This was when we got down. Incidents or alleged violations of the spirit, mission, motions, policies, codes, and or regulations of the WCA. So, the investigations can be initiated by the WCA Integrity Committee itself or by the WCA Board. Either way, us as participants have a duty essentially to inform delegates or the board, the WIC or the board about things that we think should be investigated. It's kind of like, again, I'm on boards, right? So we have a similar complaints policy in schools. You talk to a teacher first. If you're a parent with a complaint or whatever like that, or if you're a child with a complaint, you talk to the teacher. That's your first port of call. They're like our delegates, okay? Think of a teacher like a delegate. If it's not resolvable by the teacher, where do you go next? You go to the head teacher, right? That's like the WIC, all right? Teachers are delegates, head teacher's the WIC. If the WIC can't resolve it, it goes to the board. Same. If the head teacher can't resolve it, it goes to the board. It's the same. It's the same thing. We talk to our delegates first. Then if it can't be resolved, it goes to WIC. Or if it's serious enough, it goes to WIC. If it's serious enough, it goes to the board. That's the chain of command in reverse, you know? Is my understanding from the publicly available documents. Performing independent investigations regarding... this is another right and duty. Performing independent investigations regarding WCA regional organizations. The subjects of the investigations are incidents during WCA competitions, incidents related to WCA competitions, incidents related to the function of the regional organizations, or incidents within the WCA community. This is specifically to specifically about regional organizations we're talking about now in this one. Thank you for the translation, Prajda. Incidents are alleged violations of the spirit, mission, motions, policies, codes, and or regulations of the WCA. The investigations can be initiated by the Integrity Committee itself or the WCA board. So that's kind of a double up, but it's about WCA community members, first of all, and then it's about WCA regional organizations, second of all. So their remit's quite large. Delivering an independent report on the investigations. Making decisions on disciplinary actions in relation to the investigated incidents. C, WCA motions, suspensions, and other sanctions. And we are actually going to see that right now. We're going to dive out of here to go check out suspensions and other sanctions, and then we're going to come back and finish this motion. I think it's probably important to go and see suspensions and other sanctions now before we move on, because it's relevant to bits in the rest of the document. So this is another motion. Again, March 1st, 2025. So the motion is the definition of suspensions and other sanctions. So the WCA Integrity Committee shall have the following rights and duties. 1. To suspend a community member from participation in or attendance of a WCA competition or specific events of a WCA competition for a fixed period or until a specified set of circumstances changes or ceases to exist. 1.2 to caution or censure a community member. 1.3 to issue fines against a community member and suspend them from participation in a WCA competition until the fines are paid. It does specify, because I thought fines, because I did, in investigating this, I did look at the FIDE just for something else to look at. I looked at their code of conduct just to compare a couple things, and they can hand up to, they've got a ball bag fine. Like if you're being a ball bag, that's a colloquialism. If you're being a dickhead, right? If you're just a repeat offender, they can slap you with a fine of up to $25,000. And I was reading that and just being like, hell yeah, more of that. Let's go. Fines must only be issued if the acts of the community member cause financial damage or financial loss to the WCA or any organization or individual with the WCA community. So it's only fines if you caused financial damage, and the fine must not be larger than the actual damage or loss. Come on now. Let's clip the ticket a little bit. Come on, we're a not-for-profit. Let's start handing out fines to people. 1.4 to issue fines against. I'm half joking. To issue fines against a WCA regional organization and suspend a regional organization member from hosting WCA competitions or attending WCA meetings until the fines are paid. Fines must only be issued if acts of the regional organization cause financial damage or financial loss to the WCA or any organization or individual within the WCA community. And the fine must not be larger than the actual damage or loss. Again, I think I disagree with that, but it's fine. It's fine. This isn't actually relevant to what we're talking about just now, but I wanted to go the whole thing. I want to read the entire rules. To withhold or withdraw prizes and honors like records, titles, medals, certificates from a registered speedcuber, so they can do that. They can take your medals, bro. They're coming for your silverware. To disqualify a registered speedcuber or specific results of a registered speedcuber during and or after WCA competition. To exclude a community member from meetings and competitions of the WCA. So that's their rights and duties. Okay, they can ban people, they can fine people if monetary damages have happened, but there are rules around how they can do that and how much. And they can withdraw prizes and honors from a registered speedcuber, and they can disqualify one, or they can disqualify specific results, and they can exclude people from meetings and competitions, so they can ban people. That's what that means. The WCA Integrity Committee may exercise its suspensive rights under this motion only if a registered speedcuber has failed to pay fees for WCA competitions, or in the opinion of the WCA Integrity Committee, the community member is in breach of the spirit, mission, motions, policies, codes, and or regulations of the WCA, or the WCA Integrity Committee considers that the registered speedcuber does not fulfill the requirements of eligibility for registration as a registered speedcuber, or the WCA Integrity Committee considers that the presence of the community member is a threat to the safety of other community members or otherwise disruptive for the community. That one's gloriously vague and also super useful. Cookie Robber, not WIC, but I wonder if they ever actually got Anthony's trophy. True. So following on from that one, in making a determination on the threat the presence of a community member poses, the WIC should consult the local WCA delegates and the regional organizations for the respective area if they exist. That would come up in an investigation about a complaint as well. So again, to defend the WIC, it is coded in there, albeit not specifically like about the safety of minors and the safety of children. The WCA Integrity Committee considers that the presence of a community member is a threat to the safety of other community members or otherwise disruptive for the community. In making a determination on the threat of the presence of a community member poses, the WCA Integrity Committee, they should speak to the locals, yes, which again, like I said, they would in an investigation. Before the WCA Integrity Committee may exercise its suspensive rights under this motion, the community member must have been sent notice of the grounds and must have been given the opportunity to provide a statement to the WCA Integrity Committee. That's important. It's going to come up later. Fair process, due process. You can't just be handing out bans willy-nilly. They have to have been given the opportunity to respond. A community member who has been suspended by the WIC under this motion may request reinstatement by the WCA Appeals Committee with a motivation of the request. With a motivation of the request? I'm not 100% sure what that means. So we have an appeals committee, right? We have the ban. We have the ban hammer, bang, 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 ban, 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 after due process. And we have an appeals committee that a person can write to after that as well. And they can review the work of the WIC. That's great. We need to have that mechanism. A community member who has been suspended by the WIC under this motion shall automatically cease to be suspended at the end of the fixed period or once, in the opinion of the WIC, the set of circumstances specified has changed or ceases to exist. The WCA Appeals Committee shall have the following rights and duties based on the decision of the Board of Appeal. So they can suspend a community member from participation in attendance. Oh, hold on a minute. This is a wholesale, an almost wholesale copy of what we've just read. So essentially we read the WCA Integrity Committee has the following rights and duties. And then the WCA Appeals Committee, this is essentially, they have the same rights and duties apart from, I think, 6.8, because they have the right to reinstate a community member who has been sanctioned under 1117 or 6167 before the end of the fixed period or before the set of circumstances specified has changed or ceased to exist. The Appeals Committee must communicate each reinstatement with the WCA board with a clear motivation. So the WCA Appeals Committee can override a decision that the WIC has set with regards to length of sentence or the circumstances that they had to meet to be reinstated. Clear as mud? Clear as mud. The WCA Appeals Committee may exercise its suspensive rights under this motion only if... hold on a minute. This is the WCA Appeals Committee may exercise its suspensive rights under this motion only if a registered speedcuber has failed to pay fees or in the opinion of the WCA Appeals Committee, the community member is in breach of the Spirit Mission Motions policies. The WCA Appeals Committee considers that the registered speedcuber does not fulfill the requirements of eligibility for registration, or the WCA Appeals Committee considers that the presence of the community member is a threat to the safety of other community members or otherwise disruptive for the community. So that's another repeat. Before the WCA Appeals Committee may exercise its suspensive rights under this motion, the community member must have been informed of the act of appeal and must have been given the opportunity to provide a statement to the Appeals Committee. True. That all sounds good. A registered speedcuber who has been suspended by the Appeals Committee under this motion may request reinstatement by the Appeals Committee with a motivation of the request. What does a motivation of the request mean? What does a motivation of a request mean? Is it going to give me that? Explains the why behind the action. Okay. Oh, you have to say why. Yeah, okay. So you'd have to say, I'm appealing an end to this because X. True? Where the hell was that? Oh, here we go. Number 10. A registered speedcuber who has been suspended by the WCA Appeals Committee under this motion shall automatically cease to be suspended at the end of the fixed period or once, in the opinion of the Appeals Committee, the set of circumstances changed, ceases to exist. The board shall have the following rights based on a voting in the WCA Board of Directors with a super majority. Is a super majority the same as a unanimous vote? No, a supermajority is not the same as unanimous vote. A supermajority requires a specific high threshold of votes, for example, a percentage or a fraction. Okay, interesting. I thought that meant a unanimous vote, but a supermajority is a majority as defined, which it isn't here. So I wonder where that is defined. So the WCA board shall have the following rights based on a voting in the WCA board of directors: to remove or deny accreditation, appointment, or acknowledgement of WCA volunteers, registered speedcubers, regional organizations, or partners, or to impose any sanction that the WCA board deems to be appropriate on community members. Prior to exercising its rights under this motion, the board should consult with the integrity committee where relevant, the local WCA delegates, and the regional organizations for the respective area if they exist. So that's good because it's not giving the WCA complete carte blanche to override everything. It's codified here. The WCA can't override everything. They have to consult with the integrity committee where relevant, the local WCA delegates, and I would imagine it. Actually, it's not written here. The appeals committee. That might be an omission. So everyone, this is the one that I saw, and I went, ooh. This is relevant to the question around defamation law and laws in local jurisdictions, okay? So number 13, this is the one that sent me on my chat with ChatGPT, and this is where we're going next, okay? We're going to deep dive into 13. Unlucky for some. Item 13 of the suspensions and other sanctions definition document. This is a riveting one today, isn't it, everyone? We're really deep diving. Suspensions and other sanctions should not be placed where they are not permissible under relevant local laws. That's interesting. Suspensions and other sanctions which are not permissible under relevant local laws are invalid. Where a suspension or other sanction is partially impermissible, only the impermissible portion is considered invalid. Now, did that make your head hurt? It made mine hurt. So, I took it to the robot. All right. I took it to the robot while I was sitting at Georgie's ballet class today. I was being a dance mom, waiting for George and just digging into some WCA documents. Gosh, my life's cool and exciting. And I asked the robot this, okay? I said, in the World Cube Association document called Suspension and Other Sanctions, then I gave it a little link because we're kind to the robot. There's a clause at the end that reads, suspensions and other sanctions should not be placed where they are not permissible under relevant local laws. Suspension and other sanctions which are not permissible under relevant local laws are invalid. Where a suspension or other sanction is partially impermissible, only impermissible portion is considered invalid. And then I said, can you give examples of what this might mean? I'm a simple man. I need the robot to dumb this down for me, okay? And Now, I'm going to reiterate my disclaimer from earlier. ChatGPT is a robot. ChatGPT is not a lawyer. I am not a lawyer. Okay? All I'm trying to do is break down some quite dense legalese into words that I can understand. Short monosyllabic words for Mike, please. Okay? And also to see examples of what this actually means in practice. Because I think this is the part that relates directly to what people are talking about when we talk about a potential fear of defamation lawsuits in the WCA. I think I might have found the crux of it, actually. It certainly makes sense to me. But again, not a lawyer. Not a lawyer. This is not legal advice, not a lawyer. Neither is the robot. Okay, tell me about it, ChatGPT. Here we go. That clause is basically a legal safety valve. The WCA is a global organization, but it operates inside many different countries. It's saying we can't enforce or even issue a sanction if doing so would break the law where the person is. All right. And if part of a sanction conflicts with local law, only that part is invalid, not the whole decision. So what this means in practice, here are some realistic examples of how this could come up. Okay, sure. Robot reckons they know about cubing. Okay. Give it to me, robot. Bans that conflict with labor or volunteer laws. So imagine a WCA sanction says you are banned from organizing or volunteering at events. Is that something that could happen based on the suspensions document we've looked at? Yes. So that is a sanction that could happen. You could be banned from organizing events. You could be banned from volunteering at events. In some countries, volunteering or participation in community activities can be legally protected and tied to employment and contract rights. So if local law says you can't restrict someone's participation in a lawful public activity, then the can't compete part might still be valid, but the can't volunteer or organize part could be invalid locally. So data privacy, the right to be forgotten. Suppose a sanction includes publishing a person's name, offense, and details publicly. I'm going to put it out there for the record. I don't think that's a good idea. And we don't do that currently. Everything's names are always removed, I'm pretty sure. Well, they are always removed in the cases of minors in reports by the WIC. I can't say for certain that that is true in the case of adults. But in places with strong privacy laws, what's a GDPR style regime? Oh my God. I'm Googling a lot tonight, people, but I'm trying to do this properly. What is refers to a comprehensive data protection framework adopted by countries or regions that mirrors the principles, rights, and obligations of the European Union's general data protection. Oh, this is Euro stuff. Okay, yeah, okay. So that's when you have like much stronger legal rights to your information and the deletion thereof that other people might have. Got it, robot. Individuals may have a legal right to limit or erase personal data. Sure. Result, the ban itself, e.g. a 2-year suspension, is fine, but public disclosure of identity or details could be illegal. So that portion would be invalid. Curious Nick, Europe has very strict privacy laws. Yeah, it does. Hey, there's lots of extra stuff you have to do with meta advertising and Shopify e-commerce stuff in Europe. It's completely different. It looks like a pain in the arse. And I'm glad I don't have to deal with it. For example, a sanction says publicly list the competitor and their offense. Local law says minors' identities must be protected, so the publication part becomes invalid, but the competition ban still stands. Are we noticing a theme here, everyone? We can still ban people, we just can't publish who they are. Right? That's a theme that's coming up here. So defamation or due process laws. So imagine the WCA issues a sanction stating someone committed cheating or misconduct. In some jurisdictions, publicly accusing someone without sufficient legal process can expose organizations to defamation liability. So the WCA might still impose an internal ban, but wording like this person cheated could be legally risky, and that part may need to be removed or softened locally. I am going to follow this up by asking about specific countries, okay? So stay tuned, everyone, because that's the big one. That's the big one that we are currently talking about. Competition access and anti-discrimination laws. Some countries have strong protections against exclusion from public events based on certain characteristics, for example, disability, nationality, etc. So if a sanction accidentally overlaps with a protective category, that part could be unlawful. So for example, a sanction that indirectly prevents participation in a way that violates anti-discrimination law, that restriction could be invalid even if the intent was disciplinary. Government or regional legal conflicts. In some places, foreign organizations like the WCA may not have legal authority to enforce bans or may need local registration to operate at all. So a global suspension might not be enforceable in that country or only enforceable through local organizers voluntarily complying. That one sounds quite sketchy. So the key idea is that the clause is saying the WCA can set rules globally, but laws always override policy, and sanctions must be legally compatible wherever they are applied. So instead of this sanction applies everywhere no matter what, it's this sanction applies everywhere except where the law says it can't. Right? Clear? Clear as mud. Prosta, GDPR goes wild in Europe. As an example, I once did a sweepstake where I put my employees' names into a bucket and pulled them out, assigning them a World Cup team, 5 per team. Winner meant they got a prize. Sure. GDPR officer, oh my god, they sound like they're way fun at parties. GDPR officer said I used their names without permission. That's awful. That sounds so boring. Oh my god. I didn't know there was a person more feared than the health and safety officer, and it's the GDPR officer. Oh my god. Okay, why this clause exists. Without it, the WCA could accidentally issue sanctions that are illegal in some countries. Fair. All right? That's fair. Expose itself or local organizations or delegates to legal risk. Fair. Create an unenforceable or contradictory rulings. If you want, I can give examples of specific to New Zealand law since you're in Auckland. Ha, nice try, ChatGPT, idiot. Which would make this even more concrete. I politely declined. So do we understand why this clause exists before we move on? The WCA could accidentally issue sanctions that are illegal in some countries, expose itself or local organizations to legal risk, create unenforceable or contradictory rulings. But overall, the most dicey one to me that seems to be manageable, because this can't be many countries where global suspensions might not be enforceable. Maybe we'll ask the robot. James, yeah, busted. I'm polite to AI. Next minute. Nice try, idiot. That's valid. Curious Nick, so there's really no excuse for not banning people who pose a threat. Well, Nick, what a wonderful segue into my next question, right? So really I was here for the anti-defamation stuff. That was the purpose of my question. That was the one I wanted to focus in on. So I said, in your item 4, so their item 4 was this one about defamation and due process laws. Can you tell me if China and the USA would be jurisdictions where the defamation or due process law exceptions might exist? Very polite, James. Yes. Oh my god. Both China and the United States have legal environments where defamation and, to a lesser extent, due process concerns could affect how a WCA sanction is worded or published, but they work quite differently. All right? Again, not a lawyer. Neither Chinese nor American. Neither is the robot. It's probably Chinese. Where is ChatGPT based? OpenAI. Oh, it's in San Francisco, California. So, all right, listen. Okay. All right. ChatGPT is American, all right? Did I just do a racism? I think I might have. Assuming that ChatGPT was Chinese. Sorry. I'm sorry, ChatGPT. Okay. Anyway, my prejudice aside, yes, both China and the US have legal environments where defamation and to a lesser extent due process concerns could affect how a WCA sanction is worded or published, but they work quite differently. Curious, Nick, so we just have to word it right. That is my understanding. Not a lawyer, but that is my understanding. Let's read. United States. The US is actually one of the clearest examples where this clause matters. The defamation risk is real. Under US law, a false statement presented as fact that harms someone's reputation is defamation. That's a very clear explanation. Even organizations like the WCA can be sued. So, for example, if the WCA publicly states this competitor cheated, and that statement is not provably true or not backed by strong evidence, and I would imagine that that evidence would be deemed strong or not by a court of law if this came to a defamation case. Oh no, that could trigger a defamation claim. So if the WCA publicly states this competitor cheated and that statement is not provably true or not backed by strong evidence, that could trigger a defamation claim. We do have process. Remember earlier I said we arrived on process and I said that's going to become important later? That's it right there. So having the WIC is us having process, backing our decisions by strong evidence, okay? Is my reading of it. So due process, indirectly relevant. Due process is in the constitutional sense applies to government, not private organizations like the WCA. But in practice, courts may still look at fairness and process in disputes, e.g. contracts or membership rights. So our code of conduct has to be just watertight. That's the first thing. The code of conduct has to be watertight. And our process, our investigation by the WIC also has to be just clean as. Right? Not impossible. We're basically doing that. Our code of conduct, I think, could probably be tighter. Especially around that jurisdiction part, especially around that members behaving like shitheels outside of the WCA, but still representing the WCA. I have a clause in my with my team. I don't have contracts with them because I don't think that's really necessary for the level of things that we're doing. It's just not necessary. I'm not paying people salaries or anything like that. I also don't like the idea of kids. A lot of my team are under 18 when I sign them. I don't like kids signing contracts. I think that makes me feel a bit gross. So we have a memorandum of understanding, essentially. It's like an agreement, but it's not signed. It's not a contract. But in that, I've got something that says, I forget what the wording is now, but it's like, act as an ambassador for speedcubing at all times in real life and online. Actually, I think I just nailed it. It's like act as an ambassador for speedcubing at all times, whether online and in real life. And that's to cover them being it's never happened because I only I only sign awesome people to my team who are wonderful humans, right? It's never happened, but it covers me if they just go off the rails. They start spurging out in like some chat somewhere, like they start dropping slurs anywhere on the internet, and it gets back to me. I'm gonna go, what are we doing? Get out of here, right? I've covered myself in that sense. All right, I guess I have. It's not a contract, so they haven't breached contract, but I've kept it nice and vague, so I can just be like, no, thank you, off you go. Why am I talking about that? That was regarding process. That was talking about jurisdiction. That's what it was. We're talking about jurisdiction. So I think we need to be a lot more clear about jurisdiction in our code of conduct. I don't think, and frankly, if people don't like a change to the jurisdiction, if they don't like a reasonable clause like you are a representative of the WCA in all aspects of life, so don't be a shitheel, like if they don't want to play by that rule, then do we want them in our community? I would argue nah. So we got to be super clear on our code of conduct and in our process. Our process, I haven't seen the process for an investigation by the WIC, to be fair. I haven't seen what that process is, but I've seen the reports they produce, and they're very thorough. But our code of conduct, I think, my personal opinion, not a lawyer, is that definitely could be tightened up, especially around jurisdiction. So if a sanction looks arbitrary or poorly handled, it increases legal risk, especially when combined with reputational harm on the accused. So practical impact on WCA sanctions. In the US, this clause might mean avoiding absolute statements like X cheated and using softer legal safe wording like, the WCA determined that a violation occurred, and being careful about how much detail is published. So the sanction ban is fine. The public wording is the risky part. Right? So back where we started. Bans can happen. The public wording, it's how the ban is communicated. That's the risky part, okay? But there's ways around that. Curious Nick, still unclear to me if the code of conduct applies only to official WC online platforms or also external online spaces. I think the code of conduct is actually clear on it. Because it says this applies to behavior during WCA competitions and also online on official WCA platforms. The comma there is the part that's making it unclear, actually. This might be a comma issue, because if that comma wasn't there, it would just say, and also online on official WCA platforms. That would be crystal clear. But that comma is making me go, and also online and on official WCA platforms, including on official WCA platforms. The comma's giving me a bit of doubt. I know James is typing right now. I know James is coming in with a hot well actually right now. But for me personally reading that, it's giving me, and I'm not sure if it should be there. But for me, the code of conduct is actually clear that it's online on official WCA platforms. But the integrity committee is less clear. It uses different wordings because it says during WCA competitions, incidents related to WCA competitions, or incidents within the WCA community. What does that mean? Incidents within the WCA community. That's vague. That one is giving me vagueness, What does within the WCA community mean? What does that mean? Well, James doesn't have a well actually on that one. Okay, cool. I thought you might have one. I thought you would have been coming in hot. So Projta, the act of banning is a statement in and of itself, though. So regardless of wording, it could be defamation. Projta, are you fighting with the robot? Are you suggesting that my precious robot might have got something wrong? Let's go back. I think we've got some more to go with this. So we'll circle back to that. We'll circle back, Projta, to that with some blue sky thinking, okay? Let's put a pin in that and then circle back. Can you tell I'm working in an office again? The act of banning is a statement in and of itself, though. I will ask the robot. I'm not sure on that, but I'll ask the robot once we get to the end of this. Okay, so in the US, this clause might mean avoiding absolute statements like X cheated, using softer legal safe wording like the WCA determined that a violation occurred, or being careful about how much detail is published. The sanction, the ban is fine. The public wording is the risky part. So China is same but different, okay? China also has defamation laws, but they operate differently and can be stricter in some ways. Defamation laws exist, just to be clear, this is because Cuberoot came up in a conversation. Defamation laws exist, civil and criminal. In China, defamation can lead to civil liability. In serious cases, even criminal penalties. Well, shit, we don't want them. Importantly, even true statements can sometimes be risky if they harm reputation and are not considered in the public interest. There's less emphasis on due process in the Western sense. So private organizations have broad discretion internally. Courts are less likely to scrutinize internal disciplinary procedures the way the US courts might. I want to be clear again that I know, this is from Monday's stream, I know a little bit about defamation in the US, purely from watching people suing each other on YouTube. I am not a lawyer. I've never studied law. I have internet access. That's all. I have even less knowledge about Chinese law. So I don't know. I don't know what this is. So this is all new to me, right? Less emphasis on due process in the Western sense. Private organizations have broad discretion internally. Courts are less likely to scrutinize internal disciplinary procedures the way the US courts might. So, due process concerns are less central here than in the US. Practical impact on WCA sanctions. The biggest issue, but again, curious Nick, look at this. In China, the biggest issue is publicly naming and shaming someone. So, let's not do that. We already do that. And I'm going to show you, I'm going to show you an example of this coming up, okay? Because there's a number of reports by the WIC involving minors where they've just redacted the names. Perfect. We don't publish the names publicly. We have a process for that already. We love it when we don't have to actually change anything to get the result we want. So example risk. Publishing a detailed accusation, even if true, could still expose organizers or partners to legal trouble. So the ban itself, generally fine. Public disclosure, potentially restricted or risky. So there's a little table here, the key differences between China and the US. So the defamation threshold in the US, it's high. You must prove falsity, harm, etc. as part of your process. China is broader. Reputation harm matters even if true. Fair. Different cultures, eh? Legal risk from wording is moderate to high in the US, potentially high in China. Due process concerns are indirect but relevant in the US and much less relevant in China. Main risk for the WCA in the US is being sued for false statements. In China, it's publishing harmful information about the individuals. So, if we're not giving specifics on the incident and we're not publishing their names publicly, which we don't have to. It can be internal because we have a very, very strong database and we have ways of picking up if people are registering under false names and everything. Although that gets into tough territory, as we've talked about recently with Sarah, who talked about gender disparity and, specifically in trans issues there. There is an issue there in trans issues. So there's a problem there, potentially. To protect our trans competitors. But the bottom line I don't think you have to have one without the other, though. I feel like we can protect children and we can protect our trans competitors. That would be a wonderful outcome, wouldn't it? Prosta, this is basically a very long way of saying that China had pretty much no free speech in practice. Prosta. Pretty much, yeah. Bottom line. Yes, both countries are exactly the kind this clause is designed for. In both places, a competition ban is usually fine, but how the sanction is described publicly can be legally sensitive. So this is not about bans being illegal. This is not about getting sued for banning people. This is about getting sued for how the sanction is described publicly. So if the WCA issued a sanction that said, competitor X, let's call him, I don't know, Prosta. If the WCA issued a sanction that said, competitor Prosta cheated and acted dishonestly, bro, I can't believe you did that. In the US, risky, if not provably true. In China, potentially risky, even if true. So under that clause, the ban stands, but the problematic wording might be considered invalid or need modification locally. It also says, if you want, I can show you how organizations typically rewrite disciplinary findings to be defamation safe. It's actually quite formulaic. And then I fat-handed an answer. Yes, palalalalies. Show me an example of that. Prosta. After the stream with Sarah, I registered on WCA with a false name, went to a comp, told them that they had no right to view my passport, GDPR, and they let me compete. That's an issue, isn't it? That's an issue. That is an issue. That is a hole. Let's not get into that now, okay? That's a whole other thing. That's a whole other thing. Dang, okay. Ooh, that's a sticky one, which I'm not touching right now, okay? That's another one for another day. This is big enough. So I said, yes, palalalis, show me an example of that. Here's a clear side-by-side example of how a disciplinary statement like a WCA sanction might be rewritten to reduce defamation risk in places like the US and China. So risky version. What not to say. Okay. Competitor John Smith cheated during an official solve and deliberately broke the rules to gain an advantage. Why this is risky? States cheating as a fact, implies intent deliberately, leaves little room for uncertainty or interpretation. If wrong or not provable, this is classic defamation exposure. Safer, legally robust version, which allows us to ban people, according to the robot, not lawyer. Safer, legally robust version. Following a review of the available evidence, the WCA has determined that a violation of the WCA regulations occurred during an official solve. As a result, a suspension has been applied in accordance with WCA policies. So you could do the same thing following a review of the available evidence. The WCA has determined that a violation of the WCA code of conduct occurred. It's not it. I don't know if I'm talking out a hole in my head. But with very little adjustment to what we have in place, like really not that much adjustment to what we have in place, we are able to ban people for violations of the code of conduct. If we don't publish their names and we don't publish explicit details about what they did. Does that make sense? Am I completely out of line with that? Or I'm trying to be logical. I'm trying to the whole point of going right back to these documents, the point of going right back to the motion, the rights and duties of the Integrity Committee, the code of conduct that we all assign to, and the definition of suspensions and other sanctions, the point of going right back to these documents is so that we can get to the root of the matter. Ignore the chatter on the forums. Ignore all that. Go to the rules and ask the robot. So, why this version is safer? So our legally robust version, following a review of the available evidence, the WCA has determined that a violation of the WCA regulations occurred during an official solve. As a result, a suspension has been applied in accordance with WCA policies. It frames it as a determination, not absolute truth. I don't know if this is real legalese or not. I will need a legalist to have a look at that. Has determined instead of they cheated. So it's like has determined as opposed to a definite. I think I understand that. Makes it clear that this is an organizational finding, not an unquestionable fact. Avoids intent and moral judgment. So no words like cheated, dishonest, or fraud. Focuses on violation of regulations. Neutral procedural language. References process following a review of the available evidence. Signals there was some level of fairness and procedure. Limits detail. Doesn't describe exactly what happened. Reduces risk of publishing something inaccurate or legally sensitive. Even more conservative version. Yo! In stricter environments, especially relevant to places like China, it might go further. The WCA has applied a suspension in this case following an internal review under its regulations. What changed? Removes even the words violation occurred. Focuses purely on the action taken, not the accusation. Practical takeaway. When organizations like the WCA write sanctions safely, they talk about decisions, not absolute facts. They use neutral procedural language. They avoid intent, blame, or moral judgment, and they keep details minimal unless necessary. Simple rule of thumb, describe what you decided, not what you think the person is, as in a cheat. And then it said, if you want, I can rewrite a real or hypothetical WCA sanction into a legally safer version in the exact tone they typically use. I politely declined that one. That's what I declined. What did you want me to ask the robot? Is the act of banning a statement in and of itself? Is the act of banning someone a statement in and of itself? Ooh, here we go. This is raw robot answers we're looking at now, okay? Proshta, this is raw. Short answer, yes, it can be. Short answer, yes, but it depends on how and where it's done. The key idea, a ban isn't just an action, it also communicates something about the person. In legal terms, especially in places like the United States and China, that can matter. When a ban is a statement, a ban can function as a statement if a reasonable person would infer this person did something wrong. For example, the WCA publishes John Smith is suspended for 2 years. Even without explanation, people may naturally assume cheating, misconduct, rule breaking. In that sense, the act and context is an implied statement. This is sometimes called defamation by implication in the US. When it's less likely to be treated as a statement, a ban is less risky if it's framed as a neutral administrative action, especially no reasons are given, no accusations are stated. It's clearly tied to internal rules or membership conditions. Example, the WCA has suspended this competitor under its regulations. This communicates a decision was made, but not necessarily why or what they did. Context matters a lot. Courts don't just look at words, they look at what people would reasonably, whatever that says from it. Higher risks, maybe infer. Higher risk situations, public announcement and identifiable person, small community like speedcubing where bans are rare and meaningful, timing, i.e. right after a controversial solve, accompanied by hints, rumours or partial explanations. In these cases, even a bare ban can strongly imply wrongdoing. How this plays out. United States recognizes implied defamation. A ban could be actionable if implicitly communicates a false, damaging claim, especially if the reason is obvious to the community or the organization, selectively omits key content. China focuses more broadly on harm to reputation. Even direct or implied harm can be problematic. Publicly associating someone with a negative outcome, like a ban, can carry risk, particularly if widely visible and tied to moral judgment in the community. Why organizations are careful. This is exactly why bodies like the WCA use neutral wording, avoid explicit accusations unless necessary, sometimes limit detail of publication, because even if you don't say they cheated, a ban might still make people think it. Bottom line, a ban is primarily an action, but it can also act as an implied statement about wrongdoing. Legal risk depends on wording, context, and what a reasonable person would infer. Projda, okay, when you distill it to this level, what are we even communicating? Like, what's the point? Well, you can't have a public list of names of people that are getting banned. Well, then I want to. That's a fair question. It's a fair question. I'm going to go to. Oh, how do I get to the disciplinary log? How do I get to the disciplinary log? Right there. So it's actually demonstrated quite well, like right here, in my opinion, Prosta, right? Because this is just the last disciplinary log, okay? So the WCA Integrity Committee was informed of a competitor intentionally stopping the timer prematurely and allegedly positioning himself at solving stations where the display is turned off or where there's no display to avoid being caught. Due to limited availability of footage, it could not be immediately confirmed whether the competitor was performing early stops, but evidence was eventually discovered after monitoring their solves. The competitor was contacted and asked to provide any remarks about the matter. However, the competitor did not admit any wrongdoing, despite the multiple opportunities to do so. The competitor was issued a multi-year ban, and the concerned results were disqualified. Despite being the same type of offence as the third case, the ban enacted was more severe due to aggravating circumstances. No name is mentioned. It doesn't have to be. For us, for you and I, Projda, it literally doesn't have to be. It doesn't actually matter to us at this point who that person is, I would argue. I mean, it'd be nice to know though, wouldn't it? Like, it'd be nice to know, but procedurally, legally, it doesn't matter. Well, let's give the machine that one. It wanted to give me an example. It wanted to give me an example. If you want, I can break that. Okay. Okay. Here's one that was communicated recently. So this is someone who's been banned, right? This is why I started asking these questions. I was like, well, people are getting banned all the time. I don't know where this one was, but they got banned. Okay, here's one that was communicated recently. What is your assessment of the risk of this in the US and China? Oh, I forgot to give it the thing. Here we go. Oh, you were referring to the machine version, which didn't obtain this level of detail. That's fair. So this is okay. So here we go. Gosh, we're getting deep into it now, and I'm gonna go soon because it's very late. I promised to myself and my wife that I wouldn't stay up after 11, and it's 10:58. So I'm gonna wrap it up pretty soon after this. But this is just the first one we saw. I've dumped it into the machine. And here's what it says, okay? This is a good, realistic example, and it sits somewhere in the medium to high risk range, with the exact risk differing between the United States and China. I'll break it down clearly. So why is this... Why are we... Again, just looking at what's happened recently, looking at what the conversation is recently about the WIC, the accusation that people are scared to ban specifically... suspected pedophiles, people who are doing bad stuff with minors, where for some reason we're afraid to ban... for some reason the community is suggesting we're afraid to ban them, but banning other people for other stuff is totally fine. I do I do understand the frustration there. But is it real? That's what I'm trying to answer. That's what I'm trying to essentially answer, okay? So this is a good realistic example, and it sits somewhere in the medium to high risk range, with the exact risk differing between the US and China. I'll break it down clearly. So overall assessment. United States, moderate risk, defensible, but not bulletproof. China, moderate to high risk, more exposure, especially reputationally. The sanction itself, the ban, is fine in both places. The risk comes from how the conduct is described. So in the US, what helps reduce risk? Allegedly positioning himself signals uncertainty, could not be immediately confirmed, acknowledges limited limits of evidence, asks to provide remarks, shows some process and fairness, avoids directly saying this person cheated. So these are all good defensive drafting choices. Nice job, everyone. What creates risk? Strong implication of intentional cheating, intentionally stop the timer prematurely. Oh, it's hard to rewrite that, though. Even though allegedly is used later, this first clause reads as a factual assertion of misconduct. Narrative builds towards guilt. Well, of course it does. He was banned. The structure tells a story. Suspicion, investigation, evidence discovered, no admission, ban imposed. A reasonable reader will almost certainly conclude this person cheated and tried to hide it. That's classic defamation by implication territory in US law. Mentioning failure to admit wrongdoing. This is risky because it can imply guilt or lack of honesty, even though legally not admitting is not the same as proof of wrongdoing. Is that what that means? That equals sign with a line through it? That's what that means, right? Means not equal to. Yeah, that's what I thought. Even though not admitting is not equal to proof of wrongdoing. Yeah, of course that's what it means. Duh. US bottom line, likely defensible if the evidence is solid and documented. But the wording goes beyond purely neutral reporting. It implicitly asserts intentional cheating. If the findings were ever challenged, this wording could become a focal point. Okay, so I've got the Chinese version as well. My phone's pinging. Is that my wife telling me to go to bed? Yeah. No. Now I'm in trouble. So let's go through the China detailed view. China is generally more sensitive to reputational harm, even without strict false statement requirements like the US. So key risk factors here: public narrative of misconduct, even with allegedly the statement links the person to cheating behavior, describes methods to avoid being caught. This is frustrating because it's like, yeah, it does link them to cheating behavior because they've been banned for cheating. This is reputationally damaging regardless of legal precision. Evidence was eventually discovered. This reads as, we found proof they did it, even without saying cheated. This implication is very strong. Ooh, China's tough. Lack of admission in China, this can be interpreted socially as refusal to cooperate or moral fault, and that implies reputational harm. China bottom line is that the ban itself is fine, but the public description is the main risk. Even if true, publishing this level of detail can be problematic if widely circulated or tied to an identifiable person. So the most legally sensitive lines in both countries are intentionally stopping the timer prematurely, positioning himself to avoid being caught, evidence was eventually discovered, and did not admit to any wrongdoing. Together they form a clear accusation of deliberate cheating and concealment. How could it be made safer? Tell us, ChatGPT. What do you think? Here's a toned down version that reduces risk significantly. The WCA Integrity Committee reviewed a case involving potential irregularities in solves. Following an investigation and review of available evidence, the committee determined that a violation of the WCA regulations occurred. The competitor was given an opportunity to respond. A multi-year suspension was applied, and the affected results were disqualified in accordance with WCA policies. So that removes the intent, intentionally, removes the evasion narrative, avoid being caught, removes non-admission framing, focuses on process, decision, outcome. What's up, JJ? Welcome. You're coming in right at the end of a real heavy one. Very document heavy episode today. The final takeaway. Your example is not reckless, but it's also not maximally legally cautious. So in the US, the risk is about implied factual claims of cheating. And in China, the risk is more about public reputational harm from detailed allegations. The safest approach and what the WCA clause is getting at is say what you decided, not tell the story of what you think happened. That's it. And you keep that stuff internal. That stuff stays internal. It's not... I don't think it's that hard. I don't think it's actually that hard. But I understand how dicey it is. So I want to take another one, and I want to take one that is not cheating. That is, I want to find a creeper. Okay. Manipulating scorecards. Okay. No, I want to find a creeper. The WCA committee recently posted a public report before my national record holder and stopping the timer inappropriately. Okay. Oh, here we go. Here's a prime creep, okay? All right. Here's a creep. Let's see what the robot does with this one. What about this example? So the example here is the WCA Integrity Committee was informed that a competitor touched a spectator inappropriately during a competition. Certified creep. Ring the bell. The spectator also explained that this was not the first time the competitor did so without consent. The WCIC contacted a witness who corroborated the competitor's behaviour. The WIC determined the incident credible and substantiated based on the credibility of the testimonies, the immediate emotional impact observed by multiple parties, and the existence of witnesses who confirmed the victim's reaction. The competitor was issued a multi-year ban from competing, attending WCA competitions, and participating in WCA forums. Do it, robot. Tell us what you would do with this one, huh? Okay. Oh, it's really thinking hard about this one. I wonder if I've got no, I don't want that. How would you write this in a legally safe way for the US and for both the US and China? For the US and China. Let's just have a look at what it said to us here. All right. So here's what this example is saying in plain English and how it fits with. No, this isn't a clause, you dumb robot. I don't want it in plain English. Ugh, silly sausage. You've forgotten the conversation. Oh no, I'm in the wrong chat. Sorry, robot. Okay. I was having that was a different conversation I was having with the robot. I've confused it now and made it sad and called it a dumb idiot robot. Okay, so let's put it in the right chat. I'm going to say, here is another example. Can you please evaluate in the same way? Sorry, robot. Sorry. Oh. Okay, so here we go. This one is significantly higher risk than your previous example, especially because it involves allegations of inappropriate physical contact, which courts treat as very serious. Here's a structured assessment for both the US and China. So overall assessment, US high risk, China high to very high risk. So unfortunately for the WIC, well, is it unfortunately? I don't know if they've said it or if it's just hearsay. This is the problem we're having, is that the hearsay says that they're scared of being sued, but then they're literally publishing things that they could get sued for, according to the robot, not a lawyer. Okay, so let's break this down. So overall assessment, the US risk, high risk, China high to very high risk. The issue here isn't the ban, it's the nature and certainty of the allegation being communicated publicly. And I will stop after this one. US detailed view. Why this is high risk. Implies serious misconduct. Quasi-criminal. Yeah. Yeah. That's a crime, sir. Touch the spectator inappropriately without consent. A reasonable reader will interpret this as sexual misconduct or assault. That's a crime. In US law, allegations like this are highly defamatory if false and carry an elevated legal risk. Statement reads as a factual conclusion. The WCIC determined the incident credible and substantiated. So this is better than stating it as absolute fact, but substantiated strongly implies that it happened and there is no visible uncertainty left for the reader. Courts may treat this as effectively saying, we concluded this person committed the act. Repetition pattern allegation, not the first time. This is especially risky, suggests ongoing behavior, expands reputational harm beyond a single incident, and harder to defend unless very well evidenced. Reliance on testimony rather than hard evidence. This justification includes credibility of testimonies, emotional impact, witness corroboration. That's valid internally, but legally, testimony-based findings are more vulnerable to challenge if publicized as conclusions. US bottom line. This would likely be scrutinized as a public allegation of serious misconduct, and it is defensible only if the investigation was robust and evidence is strong and well documented. But from a drafting perspective, this is not conservative wording. And I think that alludes to, that sort of aligns with what you were saying, Prashta. China, detailed view. Why risk is even higher here? Well, it's all about rep. It's all about that rep in China. That's what we've learned. China places strong weight on reputation and social harm from public accusations. This one's turbo relevant. So, nature of allegation. Accusations involving inappropriate touching or lack of consent carry major reputational consequences even without legal conviction. Public credibility finding determined the incident credible and substantiated, I beg your pardon. This effectively communicates this person did this. In China, even true statements could create liability if they damage reputation and are not clearly justified as being in the public interest. Amplification via pattern claim, the not the first time. This significantly increases perceived severity and reputational damage, raising exposure further. China bottom line, the ban is fine. The public explanation is high risk, especially if the person is identifiable and the statement circulates widely. So highest risk elements in both jurisdictions. These are the most legally sensitive parts. Touch the spectator inappropriately without consent, not the first time. Credible and substantiated. Detailed justification implying proof of wrongdoing. Together they amount to a clear, serious allegation of misconduct. So here's what the robot reckons would make that one safer legally. The WCA Integrity Committee reviewed a report concerning a competitor's conduct toward another individual during a competition. Following an investigation, including interviews with involved parties and witnesses, the committee determined that a violation of the WCA Code of Conduct occurred. The competitor was given an opportunity to respond. A multi-year suspension was imposed, including restrictions on attending competitions and participating in WCA activities. And that is essentially what I'm arguing. Hey. That is essentially what I was arguing on Monday. The public part of this doesn't need to have the specifics of the infraction. It doesn't have to have the person's name. That can all be dealt with internally. That can all be kept internal. We focus in our statements on process, policy violation, and outcome. This seems like A or the solution. And if you are inclined to ask me, oh, so you reckon AI should be writing our statements? Yeah, I do. If they can do a better job of making them legally watertight than humans can, and it's a lot cheaper than having a lawyer write every single ban notification. A hell of a lot cheaper than having a lawyer write every single one. Then yeah, I do actually advocate for that. Curious Nick, it's an easy fix. It seems to me like it is actually a relatively easy fix. I I've got a little conclusion that I wanted to read before I sign off tonight, and that's what I've in sort of like going over and recounting. I actually went back and listened to the stream from Monday. Part of it was because I was like worried that I'd treated something very serious in a way that wasn't serious, and that I was being an a-hole. So I was paranoid about that. I don't think I did. I think I did okay in that respect. That's subjective or objective, depending on which one's which. I can never remember. To conclude, right? The WIC is not powerless at all. You know? And though the policies aren't watertight, I don't think the code of conduct is watertight. I don't think the statements we're making, as demonstrated, are necessarily legally watertight. In my estimation, they're not that far off, actually. And, mega disclaimer again, I'm gonna repeat this disclaimer again. According to ChatGPT, at least, there are ways around the risk of defamation lawsuits. In particular, in this case, China and the US. But here's the thing, everyone. Here's the thing. We need complaints. We need complaints. Procedurally, we need complaints to start investigations to lead to bans. So, my advice for mainly young cubers is actually the same as it was on Monday. If you see or experience something that makes you uncomfortable or that you think is a breach of our code of conduct, which you all should read, okay? I'll record a clean audiobook version of that and I'll publish it so that people can listen to it. If you see or experience something that breaches that code of conduct or that you think is sus or if you think is a crime, speak to delegates or a trusted adult, or call the police, whatever, if it's a crime. But if it's sus and it's something's going on, because not everything that we're talking about today is of a sexual assault nature. This does refer to cheating and things like that as well. Talk to a delegate so that investigations can be started. Say something if you see something. Say something if you feel something, like discomfort. Is someone in your space? Is someone messing with you? Is someone doing things that you don't want them to do? Is someone putting you in a position that you don't like? Say something. Please say something. Okay? We talked about on Monday the bravery of the victim to talk to their mum when they were in a position of being blackmailed with their own nudes. Like, that is incredibly brave. And we need to have even just a touch of that bravery to be able to talk to delegates when things are happening that are making us feel uncomfortable, right? So bans only happen after investigations. Investigations only start if you tell a delegate, if you talk to someone. If you feel like you're not being heard there, then talk to a trusted adult and get straight to the WIC via their email, as we talked earlier. And most importantly, to reiterate, if it is a crime, you can just call the police. Okay? You can do that. The brutal reality that I suspect maybe the WCA are dealing with internally. The brutal reality is that we probably can't do anything. We can't do anything about Alex and his victims now. Unfortunately, as an organization, we can't do anything to undo what has happened to them. And that's horrible. But the things that have happened to other people by other people in our community. because it's not an isolated case. It's not a one-off. But we as a community can do something to protect our young attendees from, and let's be real, creeps that are probably already in our community. And that is to give them the agency and the advice to understand the code of conduct and understand the process that is there to keep them safe. And that process is talk to a delegate, talk to a trusted adult, so that these things can be addressed. It's difficult to do when you're a tiny little kid and you sometimes don't even understand the things that are happening, or you don't understand how wrong the uncomfortable feelings you're being made to feel are. At the end of the day, we are a volunteer-run organization, and I think this is the biggest thing that I've thought about. We're a volunteer-run organization. It actually takes us as a community of volunteers at a time like this to actually work together to make sure that young people know the procedures that are there to keep them safe. And it's in our interest as a community to work together with the WIC and not to become divided. I am frustrated that I am frustrated if it's real that we're worried about lawsuits over being worried about something terrible happening to a young person. You understand what I mean? I don't like that. If that is really what the concern is, then that is awful. But hopefully we can find a solution. I don't think we're far away from it. I really, after what I've read and what I've looked at, I don't think we're far away from the solution. I think the solution's pretty much there. We just need to tighten a few screws, really. And then we're all over it. So, that's the end of my TED Talk today, everyone. Thank you for listening. 20 past 11. You dickheads. We're supposed to go to bed 22 minutes ago. But here we are. We had to give it one more example. We had to listen to the machine just a little bit more. But anyway, that's the end of my cool story and the end of today's show, everyone. Love your work. I'll be back, I think, Sunday night, which will be Sunday morning for y'all in the Europe and the UK. Anyway, appreciate it. Appreciate you listening. Hopefully I haven't gone too far off the mark with what we've looked at tonight. But I thought it was important to go back to source. And just work it out from there. Thank you so much, James, Nick, Proshta, JJ, and Chris. I'm sorry for being rude to ChatGPT there. Sorry for calling you an idiot, ChatGPT. You literally are the reason I get paid every day. All right, it's late. I'm gonna go. Goodbye, everyone.